The Berwyn Mountains UFO crash, aka the Welsh Roswell. This event took place at 8:38 p.m. on January 23, 1974. Wales, United Kingdom. Ornaments rattled, walls shook and lights flickered. People spilled onto the streets and looked up at the dark hills, where strange lights darted across the sky. Police switchboards became clogged as panicked residents called in some sort of explosion. In the village of Llanderfell, Pat Evans was jolted to her feet as she watched television. Fearing an aircraft had crashed, the nurse hastily drove up the B4391 as mist rolled over the winding road. "We drove a fair way along the mountain road," Pat had told the press. "To our left, we could see a huge orange ball sitting on the mountain. It was glowing." Ken Houghton, who lived on Royal Oak Farm in the village of Betwsy Coed, 25 miles away from Llanderfell, also witnessed a strange occurrence on the hillside. He told reporters he saw sheet lightning behind a cloud before a sphere came down on the hills. An RAF search and rescue team was scrambled to investigate the incident, but a ground search was called off due to the blanket of darkness that made the terrain difficult to traverse. In the coming weeks, scientists, police officers and villagers flocked to the Berwyn Mountains, a sparsely populated area of moorland popular with walkers. It was thought a meteor, or perhaps something else entirely, had crashed into the hills. The official explanation for the commotion in the Berwyn Mountains was that an earthquake had struck North Wales just as a meteor shower passed over the region. This was confirmed by academics at Edinburgh University and Keele University, who measured the earth tremors and tracked where the meteor could have been spotted from. The witnesses generally reported seeing a bright light in the northwest, which seemed to fall towards the horizon. An expert who carried out independent research into the Berwyn Mountains incident for the British Astronomical Society reported that a fireball was visible over most of the UK that night. It descended from a height of about 120 kilometres to about 35 kilometres before disintegrating over Manchester, the expert found. Then junior RAF Minister Bryn Mawr John summed up the official position in a letter to MP David Ellis Thomas in May 1974. He wrote, quote, "As suggested by the descriptions reported, it seems the phenomena could well have been caused by a meteor descending through the atmosphere, burning up and finally disintegrating before it reached the ground. Such a hypothesis would also explain the absence of any signs of impact. It has also been suggested that at 8:32 p.m. that evening there was an earth tremor in the Berwyn Mountains, which produced a landslide with noises like detonations." End quote. But the MOD's conclusions did not convince many of those who witnessed the incident firsthand. One wrote in a letter preserved in the files, "That something came down in the Berwyn Mountains on that night, I am certain." UFO researcher Russ Kellett said he has spoken to a fisherman who said he saw flying saucers emerge from the Irish Sea before the incident on the Berwyn Mountains. Mr. Kellett, 47, from North Yorkshire, said, quote, "There's no doubt whatsoever that it was more than just an earthquake. I've got an affidavit from a group of men who were coming home from Barla when they found this flying saucer at the side of the road and the military came and took it away on a flatback vehicle." End quote. Journalist and UFO investigator Dr. David Clark, who is a skeptic on the subject, says the Berwyn Mountains incident is the most intriguing sighting in Wales, and elements of it remain unexplained. Dr. Clark, 42, who lectures at Sheffield Hallam University, said, quote, "What we know is that on that particular night there was a nurse who heard the explosion and thought something had crashed into the hillside." End quote. Geraint Edwards of Llanderfell told a Channel 5 documentary how he stood in amazement as a flying saucer hovered for 10 minutes above the mountains. He said at the time, quote, It was definitely a flying saucer. It was a pity I didn't have a camera because it was there for at least 10 minutes, just hovering. We were on the way to play darts when something caught our eye in the southeast. It looked like a rugger ball, but the ends were more pointy. When it took off, it just went like lightning. I wrote it down in my diary. It was 6:45 p.m. on the Friday night. If we were coming back from the pub, people would be saying they've had 1 or 2 drinks. But we were going to the pub. End quote. A document from the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency revealed a military operation, codenamed Photo Flash, was scheduled for that evening. It involved about 10 military aircraft and a series of powerful flashes across the North Wales coast and Liverpool Bay. The MCA letter said, quote, "During the late afternoon and early evening of the 23rd of January 1974, there was an exercise from Derby Range on the Isle of Man. The exercise was called Photo Flash, and Coast Guards were advised to expect at least 10 aircraft taking part and at least 80 flashes around the Liverpool Bay area and the North Wales coastline." End quote. There was no more information from official sources on that specific exercise and if it was connected to Berwyn. A spokesman at the RAF Museum Research Department suggested photo flash operations were used for training exercises to illuminate the ground below. Nick Redfern's Cosmic Crashes has another take on the alleged crash. The original account mentioned in Nick's book comes from investigator Tony Dodd. James Prescott is a pseudonym. The person using it was not an official in the Welsh Armed Forces. According to his account, he was stationed in South England before receiving orders to proceed to North Wales, and claims he knew about live NHI bodies at the crash site. The bodies were about 5 to 6 feet tall, humanoid in shape, but so thin they looked almost skeletal with a covering skin. Prescott said, quote, "Sometime later, we joined up with the other elements of our unit, who informed us that they had also transported bodies of alien beings to Porton Down, but said that their cargo was still alive." End quote. Prescott would later state, via Redfern's book, that seeing the alien bodies made him change his whole concept of life. Thank you to @PlanetHunter56 on Twitter for these details, and thank you to @StephenAppWales for the corrections. If you would like the details on the earthquake discussed, you can find it on the Natural Environment Research Council's Open Research Archive, linked in the original article and attached in the description of this video. If you or someone you know was a witness, please get in touch via email. The address is mufog@protonmail.com. Jonathan Davies, a founder of MUFOG.